understand what Republicans believe qualifies Georgia Senate candidate Herschel Walker, let's go back to this time 40 years ago.
Herschel Walker, 5.
Now, at the University of Georgia, Walker has combined the speed of a world-class sprinter and the power of a runaway beer truck to trample opponents.
Herschel just went 60 yards.
Walker is from rural Georgia, where every day as a youngster he ran 4 miles to build his speed and endurance.
Well, it seems like that might be the last time Herschel Walker actually lived in Georgia. It is a known fact that Walker was living in Texas when Donald Trump tapped him to run from the Senate from Georgia and only registered to vote there last year. But Walker has claimed to have had a residence in the state of his birth for the last 17 years. As the Daily Beast reports, however, Walker only recently stopped renting out that residence. According to Fulton County tax and property records, the home is solely owned by Walker's wife, Julie Blanchard, defining the asset as Georgia residence, adding, the rental income, which was earned between 2020 and 2021, suggests the Walkers had not only not been living in Georgia before his campaign, but hadn't used the home for anything but a passive cash stream. And in addition to that, tax records in Texas show Walker received a tax break on his $3 million home there, claiming it as his primary residence. Now, you'd think that living in Texas while running to represent Georgia in the Senate would be a problem. But for the MAGA Republican Party, we just know that the lies, they don't matter. It didn't matter to Republican voters when Mehmet Oz, whose luxurious home is in New Jersey, ran for Senate in Pennsylvania. And it didn't matter to Republican voters when San Francisco venture capitalist J.D. Vance decided to once again cash in on his so-called hillbilly elegy, Ohio Roots, to run there. Of course, it also didn't matter to Republicans when it turned out Herschel Walker had multiple undisclosed children in Texas, or that he'd probably have had even more except for all those abortions that he allegedly paid for, maybe in Texas, but I digress. In the meanwhile, Georgians continue to shatter early voting records, shattering the all-time daily turnout record on Monday when officials say an astounding 301,000 voters cast their ballots. Joining me now is Jason Johnson, professor of journalism and politics at Morgan State University and host of the Slate podcast, A Word with Jason Johnson. And Jason, look, I get it. You know, people, I go back and forth from New York to the DMV because my kids live, in Harlem, But you can only really claim to live in one state and run in one state. What do you make of the fact that his state is Texas?
I will say as a universal, right, the old-fashioned term is carpetbagger, right? I don't like people who just move into a state to run. I want you to have 2 or 3 years. To be fair, I didn't like it when Hillary Clinton decided she was going to run in New York. I was like, what's your real connection there? So this is a legitimate thing that I dislike politically. But objectively speaking, I don't think Herschel Walker's really been there that long. I need a proof of life. I need a picture of him at like Zaxby's off Ponce de Leon Avenue in like 2015. Like some indicator, a picture of him at Varsity, right? Which real Atlantas don't really go to anymore, but like some indicator that he's actually had a life in the state of Georgia. And here's the thing. It's one thing to sort of hop and play residences when you're trying to run for office. But when you're getting tax breaks in another location in another state, that is a problem. I wish, Joy, that this would make a difference, but I promise you, the kind of people who don't have a problem with someone being incoherent, not knowing how many kids they have, and a history of abuse of women are not going to care about tax fraud 2 weeks before an election.
But here, this is what really gets me, though. It's not just the cheating. It's the stupidity. It's the inability to even cover it up properly. This is a speech, and I'm going to credit CNN with this. CNN just posted this. This is a speech that Herschel Walker gave in January of this year. Okay, he knew he was going. Okay, he knew what his political plans were, and here's how he opened the speech. I live in Texas. I live in Texas, he said, while speaking at the University of Georgia College Republicans. He was criticizing Democrats for not visiting the border. And he said, I went down to the border off and on sometimes. And he said he decided to run for the Georgia Senate seat while at his Texas home after seeing the country divided. Everyone asks me why I decided to run for the Senate seat. Because to be honest with you, this is never something I ever thought I would in my life I would do. And that's the honest truth. As I was sitting in my home in Texas, this is what he said. I was sitting in my home in Texas, and I was seeing what was going on in this country. I was seeing what was going on in this country while they're trying to divide the people. This guy was not even bright enough to not say, I live in Texas. They think he's bright enough to be a senator.
Here's the thing, Joy, but I wish that's not the dumbest thing he said, right? That's not the dumbest thing he said. It's deeper than just talking about good and bad air. I am still trying to comprehend his sort of fan fiction Twilight explanation of whether he wants to be a vampire or a werewolf, which makes absolutely no sense to me, which is a latest commercial that's been pushed by the Warnock campaign. Like, the man makes absolutely no sense. The most distressing thing that I have seen in the state of Georgia right now and throughout the election next week is not that I think that the guy is probably going to lose, is that there are millions of people in that state who actually think someone who is this dumb, and I will say objectively dumb, objectively not capable of doing the job, would actually be their better representative. There are 50 million MAGA Republicans in the state of Georgia who could do a better job of representing constituents than this person. And yet, for some reason, $500 zillion have been spent, half of which by the Republican Party, to put this absolutely incompetent person in the Senate.
But I mean, isn't the reason for that, and the sad reason for that, and the reason Lindsey Graham likes him, is that unlike Tim Scott, he would never even try to make legislation. And you saw what Lindsey Graham did to Tim Scott when he did try to do policing reform. He squashed him like a bug. They want a person who will simply say, yes, sir. What would you like me to do, sir? How would you like me to vote, sir? And won't even try to stand up for himself. That's what they want, a puppet.
Yeah, and Joy, and here's the thing. It's one thing to get a rubber stamp on MAGA legislation, right? But I think to say that Herschel Walker is a rubber stamp would be too complimentary. I mean, rubber is actually malleable, and you could do something with it. He's like a doorstop. Just a brick doorstop. Like that is the only thing that he could be useful for. I wouldn't trust him to vote the right way, to be perfectly honest, even if you wanted someone to just say whatever Lindsey Graham wants is right. I don't know that he would be able to read the legislation enough to say yes or no, unless they allow thumbprints that have been stuck in ketchup. So, again, the fact that anybody would want to vote for this man is shocking to me.
It's and Georgia's better than that. And by the way, Herschel, we're still waiting for you to call me back, because you said you wanted to debate me. I didn't say I wanted to debate you. I ain't running against you. Call us back, because I want to do this debate. I said yes already. Take yes for an answer. Thank you, Jason Johnson. Up